Hi, my name is DonGabor, and I've been a Learning Annex teacher for more than 25 years. And I can tell you, it's the #1 thing that has influenced my career as an author, communications trainer, and consultant. And if you teach a class for the Learning Annex, maybe the same will happen for you too. In today's presentation, I'm going to talk about creating a polished, practical, and memorable type of class. When you start your class, you want to think about how long it's going to last. And of course, you've done a lot of the homework already. But a lot of times people will walk into a class and they'll just kind of wing it. And I don't encourage you to do that. In fact, I really encourage you to use a timed agenda and a timer. Now, timed agenda is a piece of paper that has all your main points written down so that you can see them. They're right in front of you on a table or some kind of clipboard. And it also has maybe the amounts of time that you want to spend on each point. So if you've got a 2-hour class, for example, let's say you're teaching how to open a restaurant. If you can teach somebody how to open a restaurant in 2 hours, that would be probably a pretty popular class. And let's say in those 2 hours, you want to cover 8 main points. There's 8 things that are really key to doing this successfully, opening a restaurant successfully. Well, if you've got 2 hours and you've got 8 points, well, that gives you about 15 minutes a point, but not exactly, because you need to spend time at the opening of your presentation to grab their attention, and you need to spend time at the end of your presentation for a conclusion, and we'll talk a little bit about that in another session. So you've really got maybe about 100 minutes or so to do 8 points. So that kind of gives you down to maybe instead of 15 minutes for a point, you're really down to about 10. So 80, 90 minutes, somewhere 100 minutes, right in there. Now this doesn't mean that you have to be exact, but it gives you an idea of how much time to spend on each of your main points. I also encourage you to start and end your classes on time. Now there can be a tendency for people, teachers, to wait for everybody who signed up for the class to arrive at the class. But that's a mistake, and I'll tell you why. People take classes, they expect the class to cover a certain amount of material over a certain period of time. And those people who are there on time are waiting for your class to begin. If you wait 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 15 minutes even, because there's supposed to be a certain number of people in that class and they're not all there yet, what you're really doing is penalizing the people who've arrived on time. And you're actually taking away some of the teaching time that they expect. So don't wait for the students who aren't arriving on time. We'll get to some techniques to help late students catch up, but start your class on time or within a minute or 2 of your start time. Same thing at the end. You want to end your class pretty much on the mark. If you go over a minute or 2 or maybe 5 minutes, it's not the end of the world. But what you don't want to do is to go over 30 minutes or even 40 minutes. Or even, sometimes people will just go on and on. Students feel uncomfortable. They're not sure when to leave. They're not sure how to handle that. Generally speaking, students like structure. We've all grown up with structure from the time we were in elementary school, junior high, high school, and even further at classes. And in the Learning Annex, it applies the same way. I also encourage you, when you start your class, to get to your main point quickly. Don't dawdle around and don't kind of do the slow route to getting to the gusto. That's why it's important to start with a grabber and really zero in on the most salient, the most important points that brought the students to the class in the first place. You want to stick to your agenda. And that means that if you have the key points that you want to cover, that you stick to them. Now, this doesn't mean that you can't be spontaneous, and it doesn't mean that you can't interact with your students. You can. In fact, I feel that the more structure you have in your class, the more spontaneous you can be. Now, I'm a spontaneous guy. People who know me and see my classes, they know that. But at the same time, there's my agenda all timed and ready to go. And the reason that I do it this way is that if something comes up, a question or a situation or something, and I do want to expand on a point, I can do that. I know my range of flexibility. Stick to your agenda, and when you do need to bend it, it's okay, but get back to your main points. Another thing to remember to create a class that is polished and memorable is to give the students enough time after each main point to process the information that you've delivered them. let's say, for example, you are teaching a class on how to roller skate, or how to do some kind of a physical activity. After each point, and you're actually out and about in an area where people can roller skate. You've shown them how to, balance and be on the, the roller blades the way they're supposed to be and all that kind of stuff. After each main point, give that class and the individuals a little bit of extra time to process, particularly adults. Adults, you might think kids learn slower than adults, but just the opposite's true. The kids are so used to learning. They go to school, they're learning things every day, everything is new. But adults, they're working all day, they got their families to take care of, they have themselves to take care of. They've decided to come to your class to learn something that's important to them. They need a little bit of extra time to let it all sink in. And that's great, but you need to give them that time. Now here's another way that you can kind of encourage people to take that extra time at each of the main points. And the way I do it, one of the ways I do it, is I ask a question about the main point. So, for example, if I've taught classes on public speaking, and one main point is be sure to speak to the back of the room, not just to the front row. So my question is, why is that important? And the class will then think, well, why is that important? And somebody will raise his or her hand and say, so the person in the back of the room can hear it. That's right, because you're not talking just to the front row. So for each main point, you can do a little refresher, and it also gives the students an opportunity to process that information. You see, your goal as a teacher for the Learning Annex is to make learning fun, fast, and memorable, as well as being useful. And the way you do that is to take your information, make sure it's polished, it's practical, and it's memorable. And when you do that, people will come back for more. That's it for now. See you next time.